When you have low expectations, you pretend like you don't want better because you don't believe you deserve better. A lot of Ravens fans have very low expectations, and a lot of Ravens fans also have low self-esteem. And in my opinion, that's a big reason why whenever whenever elite players are available, they try to convince themselves. They go through these crazy mental gymnastics to try to convince themselves that we don't need them, or it wouldn't be in our best interest to get them. They said we shouldn't get Antonio Brown because he's a diva. But then that diva helped the Buccaneers win a championship. And when that diva left, regardless of his mental issues or all the stuff going on, when that quote unquote diva left the Buccaneers this season, that in my opinion was the only reason the Buccaneers didn't make another Super Bowl run. They said Odell was a diva and we wouldn't need him. They said we wouldn't, and then but that quote unquote diva Odell played a very big role in the Rams winning a Super Bowl. And on top of that, they would try to say that he wouldn't get targets in Baltimore, but Pat Ricard gets several targets every game. Again, a lot of Ravens fans have low self-esteem and they have low standards, and they refuse to call out an organization that is poorly run. Regardless of what the media says, this is a poorly run team. They do not care about winning. They are more than happy just being a somewhat good enough team that can make the playoffs and get bounced out in the first round. They have no real interest in going for a win right now. They're hoping that they could do the bare minimum, and hopefully their quarterback can just carry the load and drag them to a Super Bowl that they don't deserve to be in, because this team is not built well. And this is to me, this is similar to what the Panthers did during Cam Newton's prime. But nonetheless, the point of this video is, yes, the Ravens need Deebo Samuels. Yes, they need DK Metcalf. Yes, they need AJ Brown. They should absolutely be going after these guys. Why? Because they're better than the receivers the Ravens have. This isn't rocket science. They are clearly better. A lot of Ravens fans, they're going through these mental gymnastics to try to convince themselves that it wouldn't make sense to bring these guys into the team. They're saying things like, I don't even want them there because, Greg Roman wouldn't use them to their strengths. Fire Greg Roman. Greg Roman shouldn't have a job. What are you talking that's a silly argument. The coaches are bad. You should always value elite talent over elite. They're not even elite coaches. You should always value elite talent over bad coaching. If the coaches aren't good enough to bring the best out of elite players, guess what? They're not good coaches. That's all it boils down to. Bring in one of these guys and fire a coach who clearly doesn't deserve his job. When you're bringing in all these extra people, T. Martin, Keith Williams, all these extra people who it's being rumored that they are the ones quote unquote helping with the passing game. What does that tell you? That tells you Greg Roman doesn't know how to do his job. He's not qualified for his job. Therefore, he should not have his job. If I worked at McDonald's, if you worked at McDonald's and your only job was to flip burgers, and they brought in somebody else to help you flip the burger because you kept flipping it wrong, what does that tell you? You don't know how to do this job. You shouldn't be working there. Fire Greg Roman. Bring in elite talent. Some people also are saying that, we got the guys. We don't have the guys. Devin Duvernay is not Deebo Samuel. Just because Devin Duvernay, they use Devin Duvernay for jet sweep sometimes, it doesn't matter. Devin Duvernay is not Deebo Samuel. Hollywood Brown is not AJ Brown. Nobody on this team is DK Metcalf. These receivers that are currently available for trade or whatever, they are clearly better. But Ravens fans have low expectations and low self-esteem, and they refuse to demand a better product from their team. They keep serving you this poor product, and you just accept it and try to convince yourself that you don't need it. One of the other common excuses Ravens fans, low self-esteem and low expectation having Ravens fans use when they talk about not getting elite talent is they say silly things like, we can't afford him. It's not going to be good to get him. Listen. Number one, the cap does not exist. It does not matter how many times you try to believe the media or these teams that lie to you, or these billionaire owners that lie to you. The cap does not exist. The Saints are the best example that the cap does not exist. They constantly are in negative cap space, but within a few weeks every offseason, they completely flip it around and end up having plus 20 to 50 million in cap space. It never makes sense. It never makes sense because the cap does not exist. And even if you think the cap does exist, they're saying the cap is supposed to explode in the next year, or really in the next year, because of that Disney that TV deal that the NFL signed. So the money's coming in regardless. That's why you're seeing all these players, they're getting bigger and bigger contracts. Tyreek Hill just got a deal with the Dolphins where he's gonna get essentially 30 million a year as a receiver. Devontae Adams signed a deal with the Raiders where he's gonna be getting essentially 28 million a year with the Raiders. You're seeing, like, this is not a coincidence. What you're seeing is the market, the price is going up dramatically for a lot of these players. You guys thinking that paying Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf, or AJ Brown 20 to 25 million a year is a lot. You guys are crazy. You guys are crazy, and you guys are delusional. Because whether you realize it or not, Hollywood Brown's contract talks are gonna start coming up soon. Whether you guys understand it or not, Hollywood Brown is gonna want 25 million a year. Like I just said, you got people like Tyreek Hill getting 30 million, Devontae Adams getting 28 million. The going rate for receivers at this point is at least $25 million. At this point, let alone by next year. At this point, the going rate for receivers or receivers who are supposed to be considered good is already 25 million a year. It's gonna be the same next year. And guess what? You think Hollywood's gonna want to take a hometown discount because a bunch of low self-esteem having Ravens fans, and because a bunch of low self-esteem having Ravens fans want him to take a cheap deal? Because a bunch of cheap people running the Ravens organization want him to take a cheap deal? You think he's gonna want that? No. But is he worth it? See, a lot of Ravens fans, they are very fickle and they're very delusional, but they also like selling themselves a bunch of silly fantasies and silly narratives. Because I guarantee you, despite how many of these Ravens fans try to pretend like these are some of the best receivers in the NFL, which they're clearly not. James Prochet is a bum. Devin Duvernay's a bum. Hollywood, as much as I rooted for him, and I'm one of the few people who said he was gonna pass 1,000 yards this year, I also had to accept the fact that this year solidified the fact that Hollywood should not be a number 1 or a number 2. He's better off a number 3, and he would be a dangerous number 3. But he's not going to be worth that type of money. And of course, a lot of Ravens fans, as soon as those contract talks come up, that's when they'll finally admit that, oh, he's not worth that money and he should take less. But guess what? He's not going to want less. He's going to want the going rate. He's going to want 20 million, 23 million, 25 million. He's going to want that type of money. And guess what? Even if they don't come to a contract agreement, what, you guys want him to franchise tag them? When they franchise tag players, they got to pay them the average of the top 5 players in that position. If, like I just said, the going rate at this point going forward for receivers is going to be plus 20 million, that means that even if they franchise tag him, they're going to end up having to pay him plus 20 million. So whether it's through a franchise tag or whether it's through a new contract agreement, are you guys ready, or comfortable with giving Hollywood Brown $25 million when you could have been giving Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf, or AJ Brown $25 million? Are you guys comfortable with that? Does that make sense to you? It doesn't make sense to me, but I want to know, does it make sense to you? Do you guys want to pay James Prochet or Devin Duvernay, more or less $15 million a year? That's not even the going rate, but are you guys willing to pay them that? What if in the near future they want new contracts where they want to get paid? They're not gonna ask for the going rate of like 20+ million, but they're gonna ask for 12 million, 13 million, 15, 16, 17 million. Are you guys, since for all you people who think that these receivers are better than what they are you guys prepared to pay James Prochet and Devin Duvernay that type of money? Of course not. Of course not. The second any news comes out that they're asking for that type of money, then Ravens fans will finally admit that they're not that good. But guess what? You doing that, and it just wastes a bunch of time because they were never that good in the first place. You're better off going out and getting the elite talent. That way, when it's time to pay them, it's worth the money. Deebo Samuel is worth the money. DK Metcalf is worth the money. AJ Brown is worth the money. Tyreek Hill would have been worth the money. Devontae Adams would have been worth the money. I don't know if Odell even signed yet, but assuming Odell's surgery went well, hey, look, Odell's still worth the money. Jarvis Landry, I don't think he's like the best receiver out there out of this crop I just listed, but he's still, in my opinion, better than what's on the Ravens right now. He would be worth close to that money. Even if you gave him right at the bare minimum of like 18 to 20, yeah, he would probably still be worth that money compared to everybody on the Ravens right now. So again, Ravens fans need to get over themselves when it comes to trying to deny Lamar Jackson weapons on offense. Because they talk all day like, yeah, the offensive line is not good. The receivers, they could be better. But then when it's time to talk about going out and getting them, you have all these dumbass excuses. These are just dumb excuses. Dumb excuses about how you can't pay people. But you just tried to offer Bobby Wagner a 15 or $20 million contract they tried to offer him? A linebacker who you don't need, who you really shouldn't need, I should say, because you just drafted Patrick Queen, a draft pick that could have been T. Higgins, but instead you chose Patrick Queen, a guy who Ravens fans have completely switched sides on and don't want anymore. You were willing to pay him that. See, nobody talks about how overpriced some of these defensive players are when it's time to talk about bringing them to the Ravens. Zadarius Smith wasn't going to be worth the money they were about to pay him. Bobby Wagner is a very good player, but he wasn't gonna be worth the money they were gonna pay him. But nobody had a problem with that. See, like a lot of these players like Bobby Wagner and Zadarius Smith and whoever else that Ravens fans want to talk about signing on the defense, they wouldn't be used properly in the Ravens defensive scheme. Blitz. They wouldn't be used right. They wouldn't be used to their strengths. But you guys still desperately want them. You guys still thirst after them. But yet, when it's time to talk about anything related to offense, all of a sudden, everybody, let me not say everybody, but 90% of Ravens fans are going through these mental gymnastics to try to convince themselves that it wouldn't be a good idea, when it clearly is. So I'm going to say it one more time. If you guys are not willing to pay Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, etc., if you're not willing to pay them $20 to $25 million a year, are you ready to pay Hollywood $25 million next year? Think about that, because that's what he's going to want.